Wow. I mean, that quote just hits you, right? It's so real. That feeling that maybe you're just not trying hard enough, that you're lazy. That's exactly where this whole story kicks off. It's this messy combination of feeling like a fraud and also just desperately wanting to know what's going on.
So where does that little spark of doubt even come from? Well, for the person in our story, it was this lifelong struggle with disorganization. You know, that feeling where things that seem simple for everyone else just feel impossibly hard for you. And we're not talking about a bad week here. This was a constant, nagging pattern that just wouldn't go away, making them wonder, wait a minute, what if this isn't just who I am? What if something else is going on?
And the road to actually getting help is never a straight line, is it? It often starts with years of just trying to force yourself to be better. Maybe a psychologist mentions ADHD, but you kind of brush it off. Then you hear a friend got diagnosed, and suddenly that little question mark pops back up in your head. But even then, oh man, the self-doubt is real. You start comparing yourself, thinking, well, their problems seem worse than mine. They have real ADHD. Mine can't be that bad.
Okay, so let's say you finally get past that internal struggle and decide to seek answers. Well, that's when you run headfirst into a whole new challenge, navigating the actual healthcare system. This is where it gets complicated.
Yeah, this is absolutely not a quick process. This story takes place in the Netherlands, and here's what it looked like. First, you've got to get a referral from your doctor. Then, you have to hunt down a specialized clinic that your insurance will actually cover. And then, you wait and wait. We're talking waiting lists that are 9 months, sometimes a whole year long. The only reason our person got in sooner was a stroke of pure luck. A random opening popped up in a different city. And even before the appointment, you're slammed with a ton of online questionnaires. It's a marathon before you even start.
So after all that bureaucracy and waiting, the big day finally comes. And this is not just some 15-minute chat with a doctor. Oh no, this is a full-day deep dive into your brain. It's intense.
Just look at this schedule. The day is absolutely jam-packed. You start with an intake interview, then you're straight into the first of 2 computer tests. After that, there's this really in-depth diagnostic interview, then a meeting with the psychiatrist to talk about everything so far. And if they do give a diagnosis, you get a test dose of medication and then do the whole test over again to see what happens. It's a lot.
All right, so first up is this thing called the cube test. It sounds ridiculously simple, right? You just sit in front of a computer for 20 minutes and a shape pops up, and you have to click a button. A little camera also tracks how much you're moving your head. But what it's really doing is measuring those 3 core ADHD traits in a super objective way: your attention, your impulsivity, and your hyperactivity.
Now, for a lot of people, this test would just be kind of boring. But for someone who might have ADHD, this quote says it all. It's absolute hell. Imagine being forced to focus on the most boring thing in the world for 20 minutes straight. That lack of stimulation becomes almost physically painful. It's a real struggle just to stay in the seat and finish it. Okay, so after the computer torture, you get to the human part of the day. This is the diva interview. It's basically a very structured chat with a psychologist. They go through a long list of questions about your symptoms, not just how you are now, but, and this is super important, how you were as a kid. That's why they often suggest bringing a parent or someone who knew you way back when, because let's be honest, who remembers that stuff?
And this is the moment of truth. This is where all those feelings you've had your whole life, all those struggles that felt so invisible, suddenly get turned into cold, hard data. You get to actually see it.
So check out these results from that first test. The Q score basically shows how different you are from the normal control group. And look at this. Activity, inattention, impulsivity, all of them are way up there. That activity score of 1.8, that means this person was moving around more than 97% of the control group. That's a lot. This isn't just a feeling anymore. It's right there in the numbers. Okay, so with the diagnosis confirmed by the data, things move fast. The psychiatrist gives them a single, small test dose of medication. In this case, it was 10 milligrams of methylphenidate, which is a really common ADHD med. And then it's another waiting game, about an hour and a half for it to kick in, before they have to do that exact same boring computer test all over again.
And this is where the story gets wild. The second time doing the test, the thing that was absolute hell before is now just bearable. That crushing, unbearable boredom, it's just gone. The test is the same, but the person's internal world has completely shifted. As they said, it was the most shocking part of the entire day. And the data backs this up completely. Look at this. Activity and inattention scores, bam, dropped right down into the normal range. So the medication worked. Well, kinda, because check out impulsivity. it actually shot up, getting even worse. And this is so key. It shows that treatment isn't a magic pill. It's a process, and you have to tweak things to get it right.
So you get the diagnosis, and it feels like this huge thing, but really, it's not the end. It's the beginning. It's like someone finally handed you the user manual for your brain after you've been trying to figure it out on your own for decades. And now, the real work starts, learning how to actually read that manual.
And that usually involves a two-pronged attack. You've got medication, which is like the first line of support. It helps get the brain's chemistry on the right track. But then you have cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, which is seen as the first line of treatment. That's where you learn the nuts and bolts skills for things like planning, organizing, and tackling that monster we call procrastination.
You know, one of the biggest parts of ADHD that nobody really talks about, because it's not in the name, is emotional dysregulation. Ever wonder why a tiny little thing can set you off and feel like the end of the world? Well, there's a reason for it. It's like your brain's emotion center is stuck on full blast, while the part that's supposed to calm things down is, well, it's taking a nap. The result is these huge, intense emotions that just feel impossible to control.
So, what do you do about it? Well, there's this really cool, practical tool called the stop technique. When you feel that big wave of emotion about to crash over you, first, you literally just stop. Don't say anything, don't do anything. Then take a breath. If you can, physically take a step back. Next, observe. Look around the room, find 5 things you can see, 4 things you can hear. It grounds you in the moment. And only then, when that storm inside you has calmed down a bit, you can proceed and decide what to do next. And the cool thing is, it's not all about these intense psychological techniques. A lot of it is just finding clever little life hacks that work with your brain instead of against it. Like, have a day of nasty deeds, where you just smash out all the annoying tasks you've been putting off at once. Or, to fight impulse shopping, make a wish list and force yourself to wait before buying anything. It's about being creative.
And all of this really leads to a big final question, a real shift in how we think about this. What if the goal isn't to fix yourself? What if it's not about getting rid of all your symptoms and pretending to be neurotypical? What if the real win is just figuring out ways to finish the things you start? It's about chasing that feeling of accomplishment, not perfection. And that's a move away from beating yourself up and toward actually being kind to yourself. And maybe, just maybe,
Wow. I mean, that quote just hits you, right? It's so real. That feeling that maybe you're just not trying hard enough, that you're lazy. That's exactly where this whole story kicks off. It's this messy combination of feeling like a fraud and also just desperately wanting to know what's going on.
So where does that little spark of doubt even come from? Well, for the person in our story, it was this lifelong struggle with disorganization. You know, that feeling where things that seem simple